we'll be speaking to Rabbi Daniel Schwartz from Temple Shir Shalom in West Bloomfield. Rabbi Schwartz, thank you for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me on again today.
We enjoy having you with us. How are you? How's your congregation? How's your family?
If you see the screen, you can see my son decided to join us as well,
Yeah.
but everybody's doing great. I'm looking forward to moving forward and doing well.
That's good to hear. Are you still, is Temple Shir Shalom still running virtual services? Are you having more in-person, any plans for in-person services coming up?
So we're still doing everything virtually. Our Shabbat services, our classes, our study sessions are all virtual. At the moment, we don't have plans to open up and be in person for services or for most of our programming as well. We've got a task force that's been put together as we're getting ready for different things, but it still seems to be a ways off for us.
And with that, I thought about this morning. I thought about a lot of different rites of passage. We talk about graduation a lot with the schools. In terms of Jewish rites of passage, I think about most notably bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies that are going on with our local teenagers. How have those ceremonies been impacted by COVID-19? Are those virtual as well? Have those kind of been suspended? How's that working?
So every congregation is a little bit different, and every family chooses to do something a little different as well. So we had between March and June, probably about 15 to 20 different 13-year-olds that were going to celebrate their bar bat mitzvah ceremony, the first time that they're being called to lead the congregation in services and read from the Torah, from our sacred scriptures. And we have our first one actually since we went virtual at the beginning of March. That is coming up this weekend, and it will be a virtual bar mitzvah as well. So everybody will be at home. Our bar mitzvah boy is going to be leading services from his living room. Our cantor is going to be in her living room. Us rabbis will be in our living rooms as we lead services together, and we call him up to read from the Torah for the first time. Most of our families, though, decided to postpone their simchas, their celebrations, to later on in the fall, when we would be able to be together in person, hopefully, and to be able to celebrate with others too, whether that's a small intimate group or a little bit larger, depending on where we are with things.
I grew up I've always been a member of the Shir Shalom congregation, so I know even aside from, bar and bat mitzvahs, how important it is just for younger kids too to have their, Sunday school every week, and that's just such an important part of, growing up in a Jewish community. So how has that, been a virtual thing? Is Sunday school still up and running, or how are we doing that now?
Excellent. Erica, it's great to hear your voice. When they said Erica, I didn't realize which one, and now I know who you are and why your dad texted me earlier. So it's good to hear your voice.
Yeah, you too.
So for us, it's we've been virtual. We've been online for our Sunday school program as well, for our high school program. We continued with so really pre-K through 12th grade, we've been online for these last number of weeks on Sunday mornings and Sunday evenings. And the high school students, many of them have commented that it's really the highlight of their week, that for them, school, they might be online for an hour with some other people at most during the week, but most of their assignments are given to them and they're doing them on their own, and they're finishing within a few hours and have a lot of free time on their hands. And so to be able to gather virtually with peers, to have conversations of depth, has been a highlight for many of them. And with our Sunday school program in the morning as well, we've continued virtually, where we join together for our service together, and then they break off into smaller groups in classes, whether it's to play some games together with their peers or to have some time with their teachers as well.
So we talked earlier on in the week, and we mentioned this earlier on in the interview. We talked about churches reopening and beginning their services. We talked to Monsignor Gary Smetanka from the Archdiocese of Detroit about some of the processes that they are going through as they reopen churches for services on Sundays and throughout the week for Mass. In terms of Temple Shir Shalom, we know you're all virtual. You're going to continue to do that for a while. Are there any preparations that are being made or any plans being discussed for if and when Temple does return in some sort of form to in-person services?
Yes, we've had a task force that has been put together by a number of key constituents, including a number of medical personnel that are in our community, doctors, nurses, social workers, mental health professionals that are part of this as well, and looking at best practices for when we do open. And so we have a number of different things that we're looking at in terms of trying to figure out what are the next steps for us. So even our office, everything is remote right now. And so that will be one of the first things that probably opens up, that will make sure the staff can come in and really run Temple in an efficient way. Shabbat services, our worship, our Sunday morning minyan that meets, those will be a part of the discussion as well. Our religious school programs, our preschool summer camp program, that every one of those we have committee members and our staff looking at trying to figure out what are the recommendations from the CDC, what are the recommendations from the Oakland County Health Department, and what are our own personal experiences and where people are and what they're going to be up for and what's going to be safe for them to be able to engage in. So we'll roll out different phases for us for opening Temple and the different programs that we have that will take a while, but we're going to do it in the safest way possible.
Rabbi Daniel Schwartz from Temple, Shir, Shalom in West Bloomfield, joining us on the MegaCast. Rabbi Schwartz, before we let you go, anything else that we haven't touched on that you'd like to speak about, or anything else that your congregation or the community would be helpful to know?
Well, I was on a couple months ago when we just started this with you all, and we were talking about what best practices were and what we should be doing. And, fortunate that the Jewish community, I think, took steps early on, even prior to our governor signing the executive order to take steps to not do things in person and to minimize the number of things. And there was a quote, I think it was from somebody from the CDC, that even though there's things that we can do, it doesn't mean that we should do today. And I think that's the motto that we're using at Temple as well. And I hope that people think about as our doors open and we're allowed to gather in small groups, that there are things that we can do, but is it the best thing for us to do as well? And that making sure that we're preserving life, safety, health of others, and not just thinking about our own needs, but the needs of our community is an important factor going forward.
Just, one final thing, and I don't know how directly involved you are with this, but what are your thoughts on birthright trips being canceled this summer, for Jewish college students or that have been anticipating that for so long, and as that's such a big part of just, finding your faith as a young Jewish person, do you think that's been hard for a lot of people, or have you heard about that?
But it's been difficult for a lot of people. All the should have beens, the could have beens that we've had over these last 2 months, that we actually had 2 trips to Israel from our congregation that were canceled. One was an adult mission this past spring, and then in partnership with other congregations, our federation and our local Jewish summer camp, Camp Tamarack, partnering to go to Israel this summer with 120 teens from the Detroit area. And I was one of the rabbis that was going to be leading that trip. And it's disappointing. It's sad when we have to cancel things like that. But when it came time to make the decision in terms of the safety of all the participants and what we would be allowed to do, once we got to Israel and to experience things, it was a pretty easy decision to be able to make. There's disappointment. There's challenges. We've tried to give people ways to bring Israel to us since we can't go to Israel. So we currently have a tour guide from Israel that meets with us on Tuesdays for a Lunch and Learn series that is open to the community, and we're traveling to different places. So it's not the same thing as a birthright or a teen mission or a family educational trip or a private tour of going there, but it's the next best thing that we can provide. And we look forward to when we're able to safely travel there and bring groups and to experience those things. And that will be part of that birthright experience for those 18 to 26-year-olds and having that, and look forward to engaging them in a safe way.
All right, well, Rabbi Daniel Schwartz from Temple, Shir, Shalom, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Rabbi Daniel Schwartz from Temple, Shir, Shalom, with us on the MegaCast.